Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery.
This is episode 58, End the Chaos. The opposite of chaos is predictability. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are either living with chaos right now, or you used to live in chaos and you want to make sure you don't go back to that. If you want to end the chaos in your life and you want it to stay ended, then you have to have some predictability in your life, some consistency. In order to have a predictable life, to have the kind of consistency that prevents chaos, you're going to have some kind of structure in your life. And structure requires planning. Anything that you organize and manage is going to run better than something that you don't organize and manage, including your life. It's that simple. If you're looking to end the chaos so you can have some consistency and predictability, you'll need to do some kind of planning so you can put that structure into your life. This topic came up when I was talking to a sponsee last week, and I said, the gist of recovery is learning how to go from chaos to predictability. Of course, I added a little bit more than that to the conversation, but as the week went on, I started to realize how important this conversation is for this podcast, because my life before recovery was me just sort of reacting to whatever happened to me. Of course, I knew that I had to go to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but I basically just lived my life like whatever's going to happen today is whatever's going to happen today. And part of the really wonderful results of recovery is that I've learned to have a much more structured life. In other words, I have boundaries around my life. For me, boundaries have had a lot to do with time, how I spend my time. I don't have a 9-to-5 job anymore working for other people, which means that external structure is no longer there. I work for myself and I have a variety of side gigs. So I chunk my time and I plan when I'm going to spend my time on what different things. I decide how my life is going to run. And I have a sense of control over my life because it's consistent. There's some predictability to my life that is calming for me, which is the opposite of how I lived before recovery. I had a sense of urgency at all times. I lived with low-level anxiety all the time, and all of that is gone. This largely comes down to the fact that I've put structure into my life, primarily into my time, and this has required some planning. So how do you add structure when you've always lived your life in chaos? Perhaps letting life happen to you instead of living your life on purpose. And deciding how you want things to go. Well, just like any difficult problem in life, you start out small, one thing at a time. One of the best ways for people in recovery to begin putting some structure in their lives is to attend meetings. Going to the same meetings regularly is a way to add some structure to your life. For many of us, we need structure to be imposed from the outside first before we can start putting structures in place for ourselves. And meetings are a great example of external structure. We go to meetings when they're available. Now, right now, during quarantine, we're lucky enough that we can have access to meetings almost any time because most are happening online. But normally, we're confined to attending meetings in our local area in the places and times they're available. Another great way to impose structure is to get a sponsor. That sponsor will most likely want you to have very consistent contact with them. For some sponsors, it will be daily contact, at least when you first come into recovery. For others, it might be weekly, but most sponsors will not continue to work with you if you're not able to stick to a consistent schedule with them. Then, once we get used to having some predictability in our lives with these kinds of structures, it will be easier to add more structure to our life. This is because you will get to have more calm and less chaos just by having this little amount of structure. So now I want to walk you through an example of putting some structure in your life by using an example of something that most people can identify with, especially during this time of quarantine, and that's meal planning. I'm just using this as an example to share how one might add some structure to their lives. And I figured, well, everyone eats, and probably everyone's meal planning has changed during this time because most of us are going to the store much less frequently than we used to, and we're definitely not dining out like we used to. So we've had to be more planful about what we're eating. Many of us have also had to be more cautious about our expenses right now since so many people are unemployed or furloughed during quarantine. This also impacts our meal planning. And then there's the question of whether you want to make sure you're eating healthy as well. So if you want to eat healthy, you want to keep your grocery budget in check, and you can only go to the store infrequently, it makes a lot of sense to plan your meals. Remember, again, I'm using meal planning as a metaphor for how to cut down on the chaos in your life. This is a topic I feel well prepared to share on because not only did I used to live a life of chaos, and I don't anymore, but I also struggled on and off over the course of my adult life with my health, my weight, my fitness, and eating right. I have been all over the place when it comes to food over the years, including when I was really depressed, doing the least amount of work I could possibly do and zero planning whatsoever about anything, not just food, and trying to figure out during those times what to eat based on whatever was in the refrigerator or what I could get delivered based on how much money was left in my checking account. And when I was doing that, I was throwing away tons of food, especially healthy food that rotted because I didn't feel like eating it because it was healthy. And so I wasted money that way. And I also dined out a lot. And that was kind of a waste of money, which really isn't that healthy either. So I've gone from living like that with my food to what I've been doing for the last several years, which is planning out an entire week's menu at a time. Now that we're in quarantine, I've been shopping for 3 or 4 weeks at a time and have had to figure out what goes in the freezer, what goes in the refrigerator, what goes in the pantry. So the fact that I'd already been planning my meals for a week at a time for years has been really helpful during this time. So this is how it starts. It starts with me setting aside time to create my structure for the week. On Sunday afternoons, I plan my food for that week. That is, I structure my time to structure my life. Every Sunday, I set aside time for meal planning. If I'm going to be away for the day on a Sunday, then I make arrangements to do it another day. And I do this the week before when I'm planning for that upcoming week. So this is what my Sunday meal planning looks like. I first make note of the food I have on hand. If there's anything that needs to be used sooner rather than later, I choose recipes that incorporate those ingredients. I then choose additional recipes, often from the ones that I have stored on my computer. Then I make a shopping list. I go shopping and I try to do all the cooking for the week that night. If there's something I don't get to cook on Sunday, I make sure to plug that into my week so that I have time for that cooking. I usually make 3 to 5 recipes a week, which gets me through the week, and I can mix and match them for dinners and lunches. Personally, I plan every meal and every snack for the week. And I should say also, I drink smoothies for breakfast every day, and that has been helpful for me in not throwing away produce because I keep most of the ingredients in the freezer. So when I'm having my plan for the week is for each meal and each snack every day, but you might not want to get that detailed. That's the beauty of structuring your own life. You get to decide how much structure you want. But rest assured, if you want to avoid a life of chaos, you will need to have some structure. You might think it's way too much detail to plan each day's meals and snacks, and that's fine. You might just decide that if you were going to follow a meal plan like this, that you're going to take these 5 meals, different meals to choose from over the course of the week and go from there and mix and match and pick them, whatever the day brings you. The ideas that are important here, if you want to live your life on purpose and get rid of the chaos in your life, are that you need to add some kind of structure to your life. And that means you're going to have to dedicate some amount of time, probably at least weekly, to determine what your life will be like. In the beginning, if you're anything like me anyway, you won't follow it exactly. You might drop your plans to do this self-care when someone asks you to do something for them or with them. That's okay. It's a learning process. Failure and learning are simply part of the process and not really a problem in the big picture. This is true of recovery, and this is true of life in general. And it's especially true when you're learning something new. So you pick yourself back up, you start over again, and maybe you'll decide you're not going to let that happen again. And if that's the case, then you want to think through what you're going to say when someone asks you to do something during the time you've set aside for planning. Or you might be like me and make time occasionally on Sundays for something else by moving your planning to another day. But if you really want to live a life without chaos, you're not going to skip that time altogether. Many of us need help with getting our lives structured. This is why there are so many coaches and therapists, personal trainers, personal chefs, and meal planning services out there. So if that's what you need to do to end the chaos in your life, whether it has to do with meal planning or any other aspect of your life, then hire someone to help you. You deserve it, and it probably doesn't cost as much as you think. Even if you just hire someone to get you started, you deserve to live a life without chaos, a life with consistency and predictability, which is a life with peace and serenity. May you have precisely the amount of predictability and consistency in your life that you desire.
That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com, and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.